So again, I'm Katy Giffault. I'm calling from sunny Enders Island. And just a few housekeeping items, as I just noticed in the chat box. If you have any questions, any thoughts, suggestions that come up, just throw them into the chat box. And any questions we don't get to today, I'll be absolutely sure to answer in email. In fact, thank you everybody for all the emails with the great ideas. It's kgifo@endersisland.org. You've been terrific. So special shout out to my mom, who's calling in from Bristol today. Hi, Mom. And my sister Amy from New Hampshire. And, you know, my mom and many of you were the inspiration for designing this program, because a key pillar of the mission of Enders Island is actually hope. Because when you have hope, you build resilience, you cope better, you know, it helps you beat those winter blues. And by the way, one of my other sisters, Martha, reminded me that the first day of spring is only 24 days away. Isn't that awesome to think about? So today we have 3 special guests, and we're starting with Amy Pisani from, not only from the Rotary, but also from Vaccinate Your Family, backed by popular demand. So I'm so pleased to welcome Amy back. Then we're going to welcome Eric Caswell, who is the awesome tech support expert at Mystic Noank Library. And he's going to talk to us about a fantastic new service that's available at, and I double checked, most US libraries around. I've got some great books to read. He has some questions that he hears all the time from folks who dial into his tech support team. Marion's back with a few exercises. And one of our special guests, Salak, is bringing us that rare combination of financial news you can use and news about a meditation program he and his wife lead. I'm going to close with some new resources, including a really awesome new program we're launching, a pen pal program and a calling program. And I've got some really unusual Zooms, including Ballet and Mr. Fix-It. So again, don't worry about writing it down, because our email's got all of the links included to make it really easy for everyone to find it. So again, if you're joining me for the first time this month, I'm going to repeat the fact that we deeply appreciate the Rotary Club of Mystic and the Pfizer Foundation, because they've been generously supporting this program to really help all of us with our mental and physical health during the pandemic. And as I mentioned, Amy has been the executive director of Vaccinate Your Family for 25 years. And because so many of you sent us so many questions about, do I still need to wear a mask? Can I hug my grandchildren? Where can I find the latest updated information? Because it's been a little confusing. So welcome, Amy.
Thanks, Katy. I'm really happy to be here again. So I am happy to talk about Rotary. First of all, I love being a Rotarian. I see some of my Rotarians are on today. Carol and Barry are on, and maybe some others. So Rotary is really, really near and dear to my heart. We do some amazing work here in the Mystic Rotary Club, and supporting this program is something that we are really enjoying this year. Everyone is really suffering with COVID. I felt like I was okay, and then I don't know, the last 2 weeks I'm just really like, this lockdown is starting to get to me. I don't know why it didn't get to me before. It must be the winter. So I'm with you, Katy, on that. I can't wait for spring.
24 days.
24 days. So about Vaccinate Your Family, for those of you who are, weren't on last time, our organization is a national organization, and we are based in Washington, D.C., but I am so fortunate that I am able to telecommute from Mystic, Connecticut. I am actually looking right at the Mystic River Bridge right now, and I'm just down the way from Barry. I could practically wave to Barry. He's just on the other side of the other building. So we do, our work is mostly on a national level. We have a program that we're working with. We're really focusing right now on helping eliminate those disparities with COVID. We are partnering with the National Council of Negro Women, and we are actually educating women in 10 states, and we're going to help them become COVID literate, I suppose you would say, so that they can help their fellow community members know how to make the right choice. Not everyone wants to be told what to do, and you know, people who have historic reasons to distrust government or healthcare. These are things that we can't forget. And so what we're doing with them is we're helping them to know what, how to ask the right questions so that they can make an educated choice for themselves and their families. So today I'm happy to, answer any questions about COVID. I am not a doctor. I will never give medical advice. I would tell you that you have to ask your own provider questions, but I am pretty much an expert on COVID at this point.
So Amy, one of the first questions that kept coming up was, after I've been vaccinated, do I still need to wear a mask?
Yeah, it's really important. And I know it's, we're all kind of tired of wearing our masks as much as they're, very stylish. I have a different one for every day, I feel like. It's really important to wear the mask. And it's, unfortunately, the science is always evolving. And I think we're all pretty used to not knowing everything about COVID. I think it can be a little concerning when we don't have 100% of the answers in the scientific community, but just seeing that the scientists are not just coming out with saying, no, yes, you can take your mask off. The reason why you have to continue to wear your mask is because until we really get vaccinate millions of people, which we are now, and until the data comes through on whether or not that is actually resulting in fewer hospitalizations, which it looks like it is, but also whether or not it is helping us not transmit the virus to others. So those who've been vaccinated, I'm not one of them yet. You may actually not have any symptoms from COVID because that's part of why the vaccine is so amazing, right? It's 95% effective, but 5% of it is not effective. So you could actually contract COVID and have no symptoms. And they call that an asymptomatic carrier. And then you could spread it to other people. And so until we can really get a good understanding of whether or not that asymptomatic carrier issue is a problem, we have to basically cut off this virus at the source. And what that means is we got to stop it from being able to jump from one person to another. And until we can do that, we'll never stop it from evolving and creating new strains. So that's why we want people to just try to wear your mask just a little longer. I say a little longer. I don't know how long it's going to be.
Now, also related to masks, another question is, why do we need and why are we hearing a lot about double masking?
I think because a lot of people are starting to wear like fashionable masks. So I actually, here I'm looking at my desk. I have my own company made the most adorable masks that say science saves lives, but they're not actual medical grade masks. And then I bought this one at, I actually bought it here at a store in Mystic, which I really love this one as well, but it's really flimsy. Like I could breathe right through it, which is why I love wearing it, right? It doesn't stop COVID. So now when I'll wear this if I'm just outside and walking by myself, but when I'm in a store, I wear both. I don't have to, I just try to wear both. I just feel like it's easier to wear both because I don't want to get COVID. So that's why.
And then the one paper mask that you're using, that is not sufficient, just that. Because
no, evidence is showing that they're not sufficient.
That's super helpful. And for many folks who really want to connect because it has been so long since they felt like they hugged someone, if you've been vaccinated or you've only had your first vaccination, is that something you can do, or is it something that you should hold off for a while?
I sadly would say we have to hold off a little while longer. I know it's so hard. I can't wait to hug people. But I would just recommend that you just, at least we can be around other people now. I think that's a real step, and maybe those air hugs could just be a little bit longer, just to make sure that you're protected. How many people here, show of hands, have had at least one dose of the COVID vaccine? Not me, my hand shouldn't be up. Okay, that's a pretty good number. How many have had 2 doses? Okay, if anyone is struggling to find a dose, there are groups out there that are trying to help. I'm happy to try to help. I know it's really hard to navigate the system. I can say that in Connecticut, we're actually a lot luckier than other states. People call me all day long from other states. Florida, Georgia, Texas, I feel like they have the biggest challenges. At least we have one place on the Connecticut Department of Health where we can go and register and to see if we're eligible. And then we have to go ahead and like try to register for different clinics. Some other states don't have that at all. So if you're having trouble, please either put it in the chat or please email me. My name is amy@vaccinateyourfamily.org. And I know Katy will share that, and I'd be happy to help you. I've helped people all over the country. It's sort of a personal mission. I have to help people get vaccinated.
Yeah, I think the one thing that I would say is it felt like this week's announcement, at least for Connecticut, made it a lot more clear of who could be vaccinated by age, by which date, which seemed to make it go from at least the unknown to the known. Like I can anticipate when I will be able to be vaccinated. I mean, I'm sure the second challenge is then finding, a clinic or a location, but at least my sense is, and I think, I don't know how many other states maybe are following that path that Governor Lamont laid out, Amy?
Well, I know the numbers here in Connecticut. So our population is about 3.5 million people. 214,000 have gotten are done. They're fully vaccinated. And then 462,000 have started getting vaccinated. So we have a really long way to go. And right now it's 65 and older, first responders, long-term care facilities, which we did a great job at in Connecticut. We're actually fourth in the nation for getting vaccinated, our population vaccinated, and people with high-risk conditions. And then if you go to the Connecticut Department of Health, you can just Google Connecticut Department of Health vaccine plan, I think it is, and you can find out. So in March, educators and childcare providers will be prioritized. And then I think it's March 22nd, early March, 55 and older. And then March 22nd is when I finally get in the realm. It's March is 50 plus. I can tell you though, that all depends on how much vaccine we have. And we don't have enough vaccine still. And I would really like to see them continue to prioritize maybe like educators as personal educators and seniors, because we can't just forget that a lot of people can't figure out how to enroll, and it's so important not to forget them while we push for everyone else.
That's really helpful. And I know everybody on the call appreciates your personal commitment to it, Amy, and your offer to help. We've seen a lot of news reports about vaccine angels, so to speak, and folks who are really trying to help navigate. I know that one of the other problems is when you are trying to make an appointment. I've heard from a number of seniors on some of the pharmacy sites where they require you to make your first dose and your second dose appointment at the same time. If you can't get your second dose appointment, they won't give you the first dose because—
Oh, I haven't heard that.
Yeah, it's been definitely a challenge that, and I don't know if it's because pharmacies, 1 month out aren't sure they're going to have vaccines, so they're gauging what they think their supply will be. There is a question for folks with severe allergic reaction, and my sense there is from a resource standpoint, you're probably, Amy, you'd agree with me, your best bet is to ask your doctor.
Yeah, you have to ask your doctor. If you have a severe allergic reaction to vaccines in the past, you really do need to tell your doctor. There's a lot of news out there about people having anaphylactic shocks from this vaccine. I can tell you that it's due to an ingredient that's also in Miralax. So if you've ever had constipation and used Miralax and you were fine, then you don't need to worry. It's a pretty common ingredient. So most people have been exposed to it. It just happens to be also in Miralax. The CDC has an emergency meeting now almost every 2 weeks. They're actually meeting today and tomorrow. And what I've seen so far is every single person who had the anaphylactic shock is perfectly fine. They were seen by their provider. That's why you have to stay now for 15 to 20 minutes after you get vaccinated. But none of them died, and all of them are perfectly fine now. So that's like really, that was pretty scary when I first started hearing it.
Awesome.
Katie, one other thing I would mention, because I know people are getting confused. So right now we have the Moderna and the Pfizer vaccine. Pfizer is actually going to be putting in a new request to the FDA to be allowed to store the vaccine at a warmer temperature. You guys know it has to be at the sub-zero temperature. And if they can get the approval for that, that means that pharmacies can house their vaccines more easily. So that's a really good thing. And then 2 other vaccines are coming in for approval. Friday, the FDA is going to review the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. So what they'll do is they've already given all their data to the committee that reviews it. They'll meet all day on Friday, and that's a public meeting if anybody wants to watch it. You just type in FDA and it'll pop right up. And then and then the very next week, the CDC will meet, discuss what the FDA approved, if they approve it, and then make the recommendation. So it should happen pretty quickly if they get approved. And then AstraZeneca, I would guess that they're going to be in March as well. So that means we'll have more vaccines. They appear to be only 75% effective, while the Moderna and the Pfizer are 95% effective. But I think what we're going to see is that they may be only 75% effective at keeping you from getting COVID, but I'm going to guess very strongly that it's going to say it's a hell of a lot more effective at keeping you from dying, which is a lot like what we see with the flu vaccine, right? It doesn't always keep you from getting it, but we know it keeps you from dying from it.
You know, it's interesting you mentioned the flu vaccine, Amy, and you probably, with your 25-year experience, have a good sense of this, but you know, a lot of folks are asking, is this the type of thing where every single year, like a flu shot, you'll need a COVID shot?
It's possible. We'll have to wait and see. It seems to be a very savvy virus. So if we can't cut off its transmission from one person to another, it can continue to mutate, and then we may have to get it every year, but we won't. We'll see. We won't know yet. It's the reason why we don't have a vaccine for the cold, the common cold. Everyone's like, why can't we get one? It's really one of the smartest viruses on the planet, and it evolves so quickly, there's no way to create a vaccine for it.
Wow. Well, thank you so much, Amy. Anybody else have any last questions?
I saw a couple fly through, but they looked pretty specialist oriented, like the pulmonologist one. So I didn't answer those, but I'm not really reading exactly. Oh, okay. So yeah, I would absolutely, work with your provider. If they're not recommending the vaccine, I would not dare to recommend it. But that's another reason why you want to support herd immunity and having everyone around you be vaccinated to keep you safe.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
And Trish is sending a note that says, for your second vaccine appointment, keep checking, keep checking. And I do have a feeling it's a matter of supply and demand, and there's more demand, obviously, than there is supply. And your point about the pharmacies being able to get access to Pfizer is a fantastic one. That is great.
If you don't get your next vaccine within 6 to 8 weeks, it can negate the effectiveness of the first one, which the first one just primes your body and tells it, hey, there's something that you need to start fighting. It's that second one that tells your body, oh, wow, this virus has just entered your body. And now it fully goes into mode of protecting you by creating immunities, which is why some people get more of a fever with the second dose. But that's why if that's why pharmacies may only be allowing it if they can get you into both, because otherwise it doesn't, that's almost like a wasted dose, and every dose is so precious.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And anybody else who has questions, Valerie's asking, are the first and second dose the exact same?
Yes, they're exactly the same. There's a lot of miscommunication right now about that. They're exactly the same, but you have to stay with the same company. If you get Moderna, you have to get both Moderna vaccines. If you get Pfizer, you have to get both Pfizer, because they've only done the safety data and the effectiveness data when you get the same vaccine. So that's why you can't mix it up. I think Patricia has a question. She seemed to be waving her hand.
Patricia, did you put the question in chat?
Maybe not. Maybe she was just hitting her mute.
Okay. Thanks so much. And again, Patricia's saying, my husband got his first dose. Can I get COVID from him?
Yes, you can. He's not protected yet. And you can get you can get COVID from a fully vaccinated person. So.
Yeah, that was your point about the 5%, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, really tricky and really confusing to understand. And I know while the state of Connecticut has made a lot of progress, some of our folks on the call today are from Rhode Island, and it is a lot more challenging to sort through it in Rhode Island. So we wish a lot of hope for the Rhode Island residents that they definitely make more progress.
There is a lady with her hand up. She doesn't have her name on her thing, but I don't know. Mary, you're on mute.
Mary, if you put your question in the chat, it's the little button at the bottom.
I don't know if everybody knows how to use the chat. Yeah,
you know what, Mary, we'll answer your question in email. But But
There's
thank you
another
so
lady at the bottom, and I don't want to take up all the time on the call, but someone else had another as well.
She said she chatted you directly with a question, Joni.
Okay, I'll stay on and answer the chats if people want to put them in there.
Awesome, thank you so much. So we're going to move on to our next guest, which is Eric Caswell, switching it up. And again, thank you, Amy. Eric is the Adult Services Librarian at the Mystic Noank Library. He was featured actually last month in the Westerly Sun with a really nice photo. And I learned some fun facts about Eric. He loves the ocean. At one point, he wanted to be a meteorologist. He has a black belt in karate, which is really amazing.
When I was like 8.
And in addition to some common tech questions, as I said, Eric's going to talk to us about a program that I checked and I made sure it's at Noank in Westerly in the Groton Free Library, Newport, Bristol, Middletown, and it's called Hoopla, great fun name, and it has a sister service called Canopy. And he's going to walk you through that, what it will be like to sign up. We're going to use the Mystic Noank Library site, but it'd be very similar for your site. And it is amazing. It has a staggering 105,000 ebooks, 44,000 audiobooks, over 10,000 movies. And if you're a PBS fan like I am, PBS Mystery, it's things like Foyle's War or Inspector Lewis. So take it away, Eric. Welcome.
Thanks, Katie. And I saw, hi, Charlotte, you said hello in the chat. And thank you for that intro. But yeah, I think the important thing, a lot of people maybe don't fully know how much is available to them through their library. So if you have a library card, just give your local library a call and kind of ask what's available to you. So I just wanted to throw that out there. And Katie, also, I wanted to say, I did put together recently a tutorial video about using VAMS, which is the vaccine kind of registration process. So I'll send that to you after, and it's not like a thorough guide, but it at least gives everybody all the links that they need to access these different sites, the sign up site. There's a guide that the Connecticut Health Department put together. So I'll send that to you after if it's helpful.
Oh, that's fantastic. We'll include that in the email.
Okay, great. So I'm actually gonna just share my screen and take us to the library's website. And if you do have questions as we go along, you can type them into the chat. But on our particular website, and most library websites do have something like this. They might have an e-resources tab, or we call it digital library. And that's going to be kind of your landing site for just all of our digital resources, including the two I'm going to go over today. Most people are probably familiar with Overdrive. Sometimes people access it with an app called Libby, and it's been really common for several years now to access ebooks and audiobooks. Hoopla is becoming more popular for a couple of reasons, and I'm going to take you to the page here. You can just click on this drop down. And what's so great about Hoopla is a lot of people who use Overdrive, they get frustrated because especially the popular materials like the new books and stuff like that, there's really long holds lists because the items that you access through Overdrive are just like, physical books, where the most popular items, there are a limited number of copies. Even if they're electronic copies, there's still, we purchase the rights to those copies to circulate them as a library. So Hoopla is a slightly different model where you're able to instantly stream any of the items on that collection. And as many people who want to stream them as possible are able to do so. So you never have to put a hold on an item. And because of that model, you're not always going to find the most current stuff, like the New York Times bestsellers list type stuff might not be immediately available, but everything in that collection you're going to be able to find right away and download right away to your phone or to your computer or to your tablet. So you can see we've got some instructions here if you kind of forget what to do, and it's a very simple process. You've got 6 steps, which we always like to see, and I just want to point out that you have 6 kind of credits to borrow stuff per month. So There are ebooks, audiobooks, comics, music albums, movies, and even TV shows. And so each thing that you check out counts as a borrowing credit, and you get 6 per month. Once the start of a new month arrives, those credits replenish and you have 6 more. So I'm gonna go ahead and just click on this link to register for Hoopla. And it takes you to the site. And it loads very slowly today. Okay, so if you haven't already made, if you've made an account with your library card, you can just sign in with your email and password like you would, you know, any other website. But if you're starting for the first time, you can just click this Get Started Today button and make an account. I'm just gonna make a fake one. So you'll enter an email that you can access. That's important too. You want to make sure you can, you know, enter your email, and then make a password. Confirm that password. Go ahead and agree. Oops. Okay, and then right off the bat, it's going to ask you which library you go to. So again, as Katie mentioned, there's a few libraries in the area. Mystic, Stonington has it, Ledyard, I think Westerly. Yep, Westerly comes up, Waterford. And it's important to, you'll pick the library of the card you hold. So you might be able to use your library card at several different libraries, but whatever it says on your card, if it says Mystic and Noank, if it says Westerly, that's the library that you're going to pick to get access to this resource. So I'll go ahead and say Mystic and Noank, go to next, and this is the point where you would type in your library card. So if you don't know your library card number, you can go ahead and call your library and get that confirmed. I already have an account, so I'm not going to enter my card number again. It won't let me do that. But this would be the last step that you take, is you just type in that card number and you say sign me up. And then I think you just have to confirm the account in your email. But I'm just going to go ahead and log in with my account so that you can see what it looks like.
What I liked, Eric, was it was so intuitive and so easy.
Yeah.
I mean, whether I was choosing a book or a video or an ebook or an audiobook, it was remarkable how easy it was to navigate.
Right, and of course there's stuff you can do to get a little bit more refined in your search, but if you go up to this little browse category, you can basically search through any of the categories that they have available. So there's audiobooks, movies, music, comics, ebooks, and TV. And remember, it's just six streams a month of whatever it is you're trying to look for. So let's see. I'll just go to audiobooks for now. I think that's a popular one. Seems to be giving me trouble here. Let me try here.
To see that there's 44,000 titles of audiobooks, it's amazing. Actually, it's 48,235. Look at that.
Oh, it was already on audiobooks. That's why it wasn't let. Okay. But right, you're able to sort it through all sorts of different things. And honestly, it just like anything, the best way to kind of learn how to use this is either, you can set up an appointment with me and we can walk through it, and I'll show you how to do that in a moment. But also just play around with it. You can sort by popularity and see what people are checking out the most. You can go by release date. You can look at things that were released in the last 7 days, because another thing is that Midwest Tape, I think it's called, they're the kind of company that puts together the service. They are constantly adding new materials. So it's updating all the time. They're always adding new stuff, just like your actual physical libraries. And it's just a really great resource, and everything that's here, each and every one of those 48,000 audiobooks is immediately available. You never have to put a hold on anything. So it makes it a really great resource for book clubs, because all 20 people in the book club or whatever it is are able to check out the material for free all at the same time.
Awesome.
So I'm on that note just going to show you. Katy alluded to the tech help. All the tech help appointments. So I'm back at our library website, and for any of the programs or the tech help appointments, you don't need a Mystic and Noank library card. You don't need to even be a local resident. Those are available to anyone, and you can find all of our programs on this event calendar. And so you'll see I have appointments blocked out on Tuesday and Wednesday. And these are half-hour appointments where people, can ask. It's all remote, so it's a little bit more difficult than it used to be, right? To be able to help people with different tech questions, but we can still cover a lot on Zoom and over the phone, which is how I've been offering them. But if you go ahead and click on any of these programs, it'll give you a fuller description, and you'll see, well, I should go to one that's actually open. So if you wanted to get tech help on using Hoopla today at 2 p.m., you could go ahead and click on it. And then there's a little registration button down at the bottom. And you go ahead and sign up, and I'll follow up with you once I've seen your registration.
And Eric, you are amazing. I've heard so many people who've gotten tech help from you. So it's everything from, I'm really struggling with understanding the windows, or what's a browser, or, if I get a phish email, should I open it? And I think you also had some good advice about, consumer protection websites to look at if you are concerned about your password security, or you're really having trouble with, you got a new iPad and you aren't able to add an app, or what does it mean? Because I think one of the things that I know we often hear, and we've been getting questions on, is as we've been more isolated in the pandemic and we've been more reliant on digital tools, what happens when you have a problem? So I really appreciate the fact that everybody on the call and everybody who's the hundreds of people who've signed up for this program can reach out to you. So your appointments are going to start to get really popular.
That's great. That's great. That's why I have a limited amount per week, so I have as many as I can handle. And if these times don't work for you, I am really receptive to just follow up by email, and we can find a different time. These aren't set in stone, but it just helps me manage my time a little better. But it's a really great first stop if you're having technical issues. I can't answer everything. Obviously, I'm not like IT. I can't really help you set up your internet remotely or things like that. But it's a free service that through the library that it's a great first step. And if I have limitations or not able to help you resolve something, I can at least give you an idea of who your next call might be.
Yeah, I told Christine Bradley we ought to rename it Ask Eric.
That's all right. I think tech help appointment is, everybody knows what they're getting.
Yeah. Eric, while you have the calendar open, well, before I go to the calendar, anybody have any specific questions for Eric before I go on to a couple of things I wanted to point out on their calendar? We're happy to answer them live right now.
I did notice there was things in the chat. I just can't really see them with
I apologize. I can't see the chat either. So I'll rely on Jacinta or Deb to tell me what some of these questions are.
Oh, okay. I see them now. Someone signs up for Hoopla. Yeah, Hoopla is a really great resource. I'm interested to hear if you find some good stuff on there.
Any other specific questions, Eric? Well, while you're looking at them, I'll ask you on your calendar to go down to March 1st. This is one of the things that we wanted to point out, another free program open to anybody, anywhere in the US, actually. And this is Liz Barber is going to be doing an amazing cooking demo. And she's from Creative Feast. And it's all on sheet pan meals on March 1st from 6 to 7. So take a look at that. And you don't have to be part of the New London Library. You can be anywhere. It's not driven by the fact that you have a membership at Mystic Noank Library. So the next thing I wanted to point out was on March 25th from 6 to 7, Colin McCullough is going to be there from Colin Cooks. And Colin Cooks is going to make some vegan soups on March 25th from 6 to 7, which is, again, also available to anybody on the call. Are they recorded? Eric, that's a good question. I don't know if are they cooking?
So, excuse me, it really depends on the instructor, right? Because a lot of these people that we're working with, they don't want their programs to be able to be watched at a later time because they're trying to actively book new events with people. So these particular programs, no, will not be recorded. And that's because of stipulations from the person that we work with. But I think a lot of people don't necessarily know how much libraries do in terms of programming. And so I'd really encourage you to just check out our events calendar. And you can also sign up for our e-newsletter, which is, I'll go back to the homepage here. There's a button to the side here, join our e-news list, and you'll get updates with all of our, monthly programs. And always, you can always reach out, just get in touch and ask questions and make suggestions. And yeah, your libraries are constantly doing a lot. We're notorious for not exactly being the best at getting the word out, but we try.
Yeah, well, that's why, when we see things like this, our Seniors with Connections wants to highlight them. And the last one I'll highlight, this one was remarkable. I guess I'm going to come across as a real bird lover here, because I hadn't seen this before, but Horizon Wings on Saturday, the 13th of March, is going to have a Zoom that's going to really take us through all of the issues with birds that are threatened and endangered. And they're actually going to have live on the Zoom call, American kestrel, peregrine falcon. I don't even know what a northern sea wet owl looks like, but I'm going to have to look for one. And even a bald eagle. And they're going to talk about not only why they're threatened, but what else we can do to promote their survival. So that one looks super interesting. And I don't think I've seen that anywhere. And a great way, if it's a rainy afternoon, to listen in. So thank you so much, Eric. Anybody have a final question? The next thing I'm going to go to is Mark's going to put up a screen of some books that we're going to suggest that you read, that a lot of you have submitted and suggested that some other folks might be interested in watching. So Mark, I'm going to ask you to share your screen. And the first two books that came up from a number of folks are ones by Ann Patchett. State of Wonder I read, it's fantastic. It's set in the Amazon. It's got some really great characters. It's, real mystery, full of twists and turns. I haven't read The Dutch House, but it is a bestseller. So check out those two books. And just a reminder, both the Groton Free Library, which is now reopened, and the Mystic Noank Library, and most libraries have contactless pickup. So you can pick up your books without actually even going into the library on certain days and certain times. The next book, I'm actually, you can't see it, but I'll hold mine up later. I'm reading this one. One of my daughter's boyfriends gave this, because he knows how much I love to read, gave it to me for Christmas, and I'm halfway through it. It's set in Ireland. It's a fantastic mystery. So look up Tana French for The Searchers. My mom clued me into the next two books, and those are both by Isabel Allende. Christine Bradley's a big fan of Isabel Allende as well. So whether it's in the midst of winter or A Long Petal of the Sea, check out both of these books. And then the last one, thanks to one of the folks on the call who suggested it, and that's Lisa Gardner. This is a real page turner before she disappeared. And if you like listening to it as an audiobook, look for it on Hoopla as well. So this is cold cases is what Before She Disappeared is all about. So those are, again, some great titles, and thank you so much for folks that suggested it, and keep them coming, because it is one thing that, especially with Hoopla and especially with contactless pickup, you can do in the pandemic without worrying about it. So one other thing I wanted to mention is that we've had a slight delay with printing our journals, but they're coming soon. And thank you to ABC Photo. And we will be having them at the Mystic and Noank Library contactless pickup desk with pens from Ravis. So I'll let you know in the email when all of them will be there, because as we talked about last month, journaling is one of the key things that, you know, really helps you record any kind of history about you and your life, your favorite recipes, things you're grateful for. So we're really excited to be able to share Seniors with Connections journals. So I'll let you know by email. So switching things up a little bit, I did find a wonderful little simple statement, a little poster that was actually in Psychology Today that said 8 simple ways to boost your spirits. And Mark, if you would put that slide up, I'm going to attach it in the email so you can put it on your refrigerator. And those 8 simple ways, let's see, tell me, Mark, when we have that up. If we don't, I'll start. So the first 4 are things that we've talked about, and you'll hear a minute what Marion's focused on is 1, find a way to stay active indoors. The second one is write down 2 things you're grateful for. The third is start a new hobby. I heard yesterday someone who started to learn ukulele. At Enders Island, Father Tom is learning how to play the bagpipes, which is really much harder than I ever realized. This is a really sweet one. The last one is on this page is leave a thank you in your mailbox for your mail person, because they really have a lot of work to do. And the next one is on page slide 2, Mark, is listen to music instead of the news. Deb Newman is huge for doing that. Get some fresh air, go for a walk or a drive. You can do that in this COVID environment. No surprise, get enough sleep. And then the last one is just call someone every day and ask, how are you doing? Psychology Today said that, you know, even if you just do one of these a week, it'll ultimately help you feel better. And you may remember that one of the things Marion talks about, if you had a chance to watch her video from last month, this month, she is going to, oh, and Eric's reminding everyone, and we're going to attach it, a Hoopla guide. And the question was, yes, you get 6 credits a month from someone on their iPhone. And after you use up the 6 credits, the next month you get another 6 credits. So it just repeats all over again. So switching things up, I'm going to just remind everybody, and Mark's going to show us a little preview of Marion at the, you may remember, she is from the Ocean Community YMCA Nyack branch, and she's created 6 custom videos for us, which are all about doing exercises at home. So whether it's strength or flexibility or balance. And this month it's all about, and I need this terribly, stretching and exercises for your biceps and your triceps. So, you know, you can do it at your own pace. You can do it at home. If you don't have weights, as I said last month, you can use bags of beans or put cans in your socks. So check out the video that will be attached in the email, because it's video number 2. So next, I'm really excited to welcome another dedicated member of the Rotary and a friend of Enders Island. And it's Barry Salak, who is, as Amy said, right down the street from her office. He is the Vice President and Financial Advisor at Janney Montgomery Scott. He's got extensive experience in financial planning. And today he's brought a view of what he's seeing in the marketplace, what you should keep an eye out for as signals. And as I mentioned, he has that fabulous combination of not only knowing what's happening in the marketplace, but how to help us with meditation and mindfulness. And he's going to tell us a little bit about the program for Enders Island that he and his wife Maury host. So take it away, Barry.
Okay, good morning, Katie. Good morning, everybody on the call. Thank you for allowing me to be here. Again, my name is Barry Salak. I've been a financial advisor for the last 34 years, and we are, our team is at Jenny Montgomery Scott here in Mystic. Over on the river, looking out my window, I can see the river and I can see Bedford Sticks. Jenny Montgomery Scott is the oldest firm in our industry. We go back to 1832, believe it or not, continuously run. It's privately owned. And Jenny manages assets for individuals, families, small businesses, large businesses primarily. And interesting footnote on Jenny. Jenny, most people, it's not a household name for most people, actually financed the Union Army during the Civil War. If you think about it, there was no income tax. How did they finance the Union Army? Well, they went to Jenny Montgomery Scott and asked for money. So, but we don't tell our clients in the South that. But what I wanted to do today was just it's a broad topic to talk about the capital markets, and it is a topic that in our review meetings with clients, we always start with taking what I call the International Space Station view of the Earth. We're looking down at the whole world, we're looking at the US, what is going on in the capital markets, what's happening with the stock market, bond market, inflation, interest rates, so on and so forth. So each one of these topics we can talk for an hour on. So we're going to try to compress it. Any questions, obviously, put them up in the chat room. So let's just start by, and I'm going to share some slides in a minute, talking a little bit about last year. So last year, we were in coming out of 2019, we were in a very strong economy. The economy was very robust. Unemployment was low at historic low levels. Interest rates were low. Stock market was doing well, and we had this COVID emergency. And about 11 months ago in March, the stock market had gone down. The stock market, of course, is measured by the Standard & Poor's 500 index. The most popular index had dropped 34% in a couple of months in a very short period of time. So it looked like the world was going to end, and people were very worried about everything. And we entered into a recession. So how did the year end? Well, we're coming out of the recession. GDP is going to be robust this year, probably a little over 4%, maybe 4.3, could be higher. Part of the good news is that entering into this recession, which was caused by a pandemic, the economy was strong. So the underpinnings were strong. So unlike other recessions where the economy slowly weakened, this was not the case in this recession. So we ended up the year up 16% on the S&P. So what's happening now? The big news is probably Washington and everything going on, all the political noise that you hear across the aisles, fighting over bills and spending and that sort of thing. But there's an old saying that monetary liquidity overcomes all politics, or another way to say it is monetary liquidity trumps politics in Washington. And that is the case. So the Federal Reserve Bank, Chairman Powell was testifying this week, started yesterday. They are committed to keeping a very robust liquidity program going, what does that mean? It means that industry, anybody with a business, anybody out there refinancing a mortgage can borrow money now at very low rates. So liquidity is very good for the economy, but there's a cost, there's a price. And a lot of people say, well, how are we going to pay for all this debt? And what's going to happen with what's all this spending? Well, some of the spending is instantly produces results in the economy. When you give people checks in their bank accounts, they spend it, and that helps the economy. But a couple things do happen when you have excess liquidity and excess spending. Number one, you get a falling dollar. So if you look at the dollar index over the last year, a little more than a year, the dollar index has fallen dramatically from around 108 to around 90. And you might think, well, what does that have to do with me? Well, it does. It is important. for businesses, it means that U.S. goods are cheaper globally. So if you're United Technologies and you're competing with Rolls-Royce on an engine for a new Airbus, your product just got cheaper dramatically, even though you haven't raised your prices or lowered your prices. So it's very good for U.S. corporations. Falling dollar is good. But the second leg in the stool is that you get rising inflation. So rising inflation means that things start to cost more. So are we starting to see that? Yes, you're seeing inflation in basic commodities. Copper has more than doubled. Corn, wheat, soybeans, all the basic commodities have increased in price. And that could lead to further inflation. I'll talk about that in a second. And the third is rising interest rates. So interest rates have been rising dramatically on the 10-year Treasury. If you've been following it, we've gone from around 0.6 or less of 1%, 0.6%, to about 1.35. How high will it go? It's really hard to predict in the short term. Longer term, we think over the next 6 to 10 years that treasuries will return to around 3% as measured by the 10-year Treasury. So, all right, so let's bring that home to you. What does it mean for your wallet? Well, it means a couple things. That sort of liquidity produces what's called a PE expansion in the stock market. And that's really just a nice way of saying stocks will go higher. That's all that means. So liquidity will drive the price earnings ratio higher, and I'll show you that. So let's take a look at some of the slides. I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully this will work. There we go. Let me know if you can see that.
Perfect, thank you.
See that? Okay. All right. So what is this? We're looking at corporate profits. So what drives the stock market is corporate profits. And I'm going to use my mouse just to circle a couple things. The blue bars all the way to the right are earnings projections, forward earnings estimates for the S&P 500 index. So these are, again, estimates. And then these bars here are actual earnings. So you can see, let's go back a little bit. Here's the recession that we saw, the financial crisis, that in 08 and 09, you can see earnings fell off a cliff here, and then they recovered. Earnings started to weaken here in 2014, or we had, because of regulatory concerns. We had an election, earnings picked up with deregulation. And then we had the COVID crisis, earnings fell off a cliff again. But if we look out to this year, 21, and head to next year, 22, earnings are back in a step higher. So that means that companies that are reporting their earnings estimates are saying, hey, business is good. We think that earnings are going to be okay. So let's go to the next slide. This is kind of a spooky one a little bit because it's showing you the S&P at different inflection points going back to 1996. You can kind of see these peaks and fall offs. Here's the dot-com bubble bursting here. The market had gone up 106%, and we dropped 49%. We bottomed out in 01, and then we had 9/11, continued to kind of bounce along the bottom, came back very nicely, and then we had the financial crisis. So if you look at this, these 2 points in time that I'm moving my mouse over, if you were, they kind of call that the lost decade. And if you were lucky enough to read one of the bestsellers in the financial world in the late 90s about indexing by the founder of Vanguard and the S&P 500 index, and you picked March 24th of 2000, it took you to October 9th of 2007, 17 years later, to get even again, and then only to then experience a very dramatic stock market sell-off caused by the financial crisis. And then we had kind of bouncing along here. And what this is showing is quantitative easing. That's the Federal Reserve expanding their balance sheet, buying back bonds, keeping interest rates low. So the market went up very nicely and recovered. What you see here is the rally caused by, in the last presidential cycle. And then here's the COVID sell-off down 34%. And then we're back up to where we were. So, but what does that mean? It means that PEs are high right now, 21.8 on the S&P, which is a little higher than the average. So where are we? Because if you look at this slide here, you kind of think, wow, stocks can't possibly go any higher. Where are we? But keep in mind that stocks will continue to go higher as long as earnings are growing and the PE levels are reasonable. So if you wanted to use a baseball analogy, this is kind of this is going back to 1900. So we're going to have 120 years of look backs. These sort of like steps here, the one we just looked at from the that just ended in about 2013, that is a sideways market. And then this forward step is what's called a secular bull market. This is a secular bull market here. This is a secular bull market here. So we're in a secular bull market. Where are we in the cycle? We're probably about halfway, to use a baseball analogy. We're about mid-in. So we're not anywhere long in the tooth in terms of stocks aren't going to crash and go down 50%, or anything like that. But what exactly is going on in the stock market? There is a rotation. The stocks rotate, and there's a rotation to value. Value are the traditional blue chip stocks that pay dividends. So a little bit of inflation, rising interest rates give sort of like a tailwind to value stocks. And value stocks have had a backseat to growth. So growth stocks have been driving the market, and the growth stock rally has really been concentrated in just a handful of names. The other thing that happens in this type of environment is small cap stocks do well as well. But the growth, this year could, as measured by the growth stock index, the Russell growth index, Russell 1000, could take a backseat to the Russell value index. That could happen for the first time in many years. So how's the consumer doing in all of this? Because you might say, well, you're talking about Silicon Valley billionaires, and it doesn't apply to me. Let's look at a couple stats here. We were in sort of, if you remember back in like 2009, like there was a lot of concern about the amount of consumer debt that was being taken on by households. You can see it here. The consumer debt was increasing at a very disturbing pace. And one of the outcomes of the financial crisis in 2008 was this huge day of reckoning where consumers started to pay down their debt and started to pay down revolving loans, auto loans, and mortgages and that sort of thing. So where we are now, we're at one of the lowest points of consumer debt to household disposable personal income that we've seen in decades, going back to 1980. So consumers are actually in a very good position. What about household net worth? This is household net worth has been, you can see it increasing here, going back to 1990. Household income is net worth has been growing. What is the consumer balance sheet? What does it look like? It's mostly about 25% is your home, and then you get into those that have pension funds. That's a big part of it, or pensions. And then financial assets are really the underpinning of the consumer balance sheet. So consumers are actually in a good position historically, going back to 1980. So which makes us very positive about the recovery of the economy as we go forward. So what is this? What are we looking at here? It kind of looks like a chart of a mountain here, and maybe that's the steep slope going downward. What we're looking at is interest rates and inflation. So interest rates Well, if you hear the term bull market, bear market, if you were a bond buyer or even a CD buyer, you probably remember back in September of '81 that you could get almost 16% on the 10-year treasury. And so that was a peak. But basically since the early '80s, bonds have been on a bull market. In other words, that people made a lot of money just owning bonds because even though rates were going lower and lower, bonds were going up in value. So as rates fall, bonds go up in value. I'll give you an example. The 20-year treasury, just look at my other screen here, it's measured by TLT, that's an ETF, is down 11% year to date. The 20-year yield's around 2%, but it's lost about 11% in value this year. Last year, during the financial upheaval through March, the 20-year treasury was up 26%. So if somebody bought the 20-year treasury bond on January 1st with the comfort level of knowing they were going to collect 2% interest, and they looked at their statement in the end of March, they were up 26%. So why did that happen? Because interest rates went lower, existing bonds went up. So that ended. So the bull market in bonds is officially over, and rates are starting to creep back up.
So Barry, one of the questions was, how does that impact the real estate market?
Good question. So, well, I'm not an expert in real estate index pricing. This has been an unusual year because pockets of real estate, like Connecticut as an example, the real estate prices have gone higher because of demand. But what does move in general, so take the COVID crisis away, in general, inflation is a friend to owning real estate. So you need a little bit of inflation, not a lot. So, real estate, it's a good investment in that part of the reason is it's hard to sell it. It's illiquid. So that is a double-edged sword. So the fact that you are kind of forced to hang on to your real estate and you can't sell it every 2 minutes like a Bitcoin means that it grows steadily over time as long as we have a little bit of inflation and you're kind of in the right part of the country in terms of demand. Real estate prices should be fine.
Thank you.
So what we're looking at here is red dots are inter-year declines. We're going back, we're looking back 41 years, and the S&P 500 usually has a correction, and corrections are normal. And so when I get a kick out of watching the financial news or the financial entertainment channel, and they'll say, the S&P just had its biggest drop since last month in the first week of January, or since last August or whatever. But you have to look at markets in longer term views. And what this is showing us, these red dots are inter-year declines. But if you're looking back over 41 years, stocks have been positive in 31 of the last 41 years. But the average inter-year decline is 14.3%. What does that mean? It means that, on average, the index, as measured by the S&P, will drop 14.3% in any given year from the peak to the trough. And that's normal. So something beyond a 14% correction is excessive. So here's, last year was excessive, minus 34%. The year before, we were minus 7%. Year before that, we were down 20%. You can kind of see
Mary, the classic advice of always taking the long view is really the net takeaway. Is not worry about what was last month or last week, but it's really looking at the long view.
Exactly. So that's why you always want to look at earnings. Warren Buffett is, he's famous for a lot of different sayings, but one of those is that when he buys a company as a shareholder, as an owner of the company, he considers himself an owner. he does his homework and he uses about 5 different screens for buying a stock. And we won't get into those, but it's called intrinsic value. And he says he would own that stock even if it wasn't trading, even if it had stopped trading, but if he had faith in the underlying business model, he'd still own it. He'd want to be an owner. So when you're owning a company, let's say, for example, Pfizer, I'm not recommending Pfizer, or this is not a commercial for Pfizer stock, but if you were confident that Pfizer is one of the largest pharmaceuticals in the world, you know, the dividend that is increased on an average of about 8% a year, growing their earnings, projected to grow their earnings in the high single digits the next 5 years. Right now it's at 33, 80. You see it has a dividend yield of 4.6. So, you know, you own that for the long term. And, you know, the Pfizer clients have often owned the stock for decades and decades. Statistically, if you buy a stock today, that stock has about a 33% chance of being below where you bought it a year from now. So when somebody's a young person and they're buying a stock for the first time, I'll say to them, you know, you got about a third of a chance that the stock you're buying today will be lower a year from now. So you got to, you know, and then the chance of the stock being lower 5 years from now is about 10%, and over 10 years it's 0. So the longer you hold the stock, the greater possibility that it will increase.
Barry, I want to make
that's
sure
kind
for you to talk about the meditation program. So I might suggest we're going to make sure that everybody has your contact information at Janney, and whether you're local or far away, Barry obviously can Zoom with you and or meet with you in a socially distant manner. So I find this all fascinating, and I love the overview and the long view. So we really appreciate that, Barry. But I want to make sure that for folks, before they have to run, they hear about your wonderful Wednesday program.
How much time do we have?
We're actually over time, but this is so important. We're going to make sure that we.
All right, I'll wrap it up. This is the last slide here anyway. So this is what's called a heat map, and it's, if you're a fan of the original Star Trek from the late 1960s, Spock would be sitting on the bridge, and he was always looking at these flashing lights, and nobody kind of knew what they meant, but he seemed to know what was going on. So this is the heat map, and it's sort of, I kind of look at it like that, but it's showing you at a glance using colors. It's the Purchasing Managers Index. So whenever it's over 50, it's green. So you can see this is where we are now, and this is where we are in January and February. So things look good in the U.S. And then these are other economies that things aren't looking as good, but that's at a glance. So let me just stop the share here and come back here. So it's kind of hard to do both, but just a quick plug for Wednesdays at 7. There is a meditation group that used to meet at Enders Island, and we will meet there again in the chapel, but it's on Zoom right now, and it's a half-hour program. It's part of a weekly meditation group that's in over 100 countries. There's thousands of groups that meet weekly, and it's to help develop and instill the practice of finding that quiet time once or twice a day. Quiet your mind down, which has a lot of physical benefits. Have high blood pressure, you're following holistic things, they'll say, well, eat this, eat that, but also try to meditate. So that's kind of one branch of the tree, but the other is sort of, that's good for you. So you're welcome to join us.
And what time is it, Barry?
It's at 7 o'clock. Find it on this
and
website.
We'll include the registration link in the email for this Wednesday.
Yeah, it's about over half an hour, and it's recorded. There's 20 minutes silent. We listen to a series of 12 So Wednesdays at 7, if anybody's interested. again, it's part of the WCCM, the World Community of Christian Meditation. So it does have a, we've often, obviously, all faiths are welcome to it, but it is faith-based, so just be warned. But anyways, it's a very good program. It's been going on continuously for a long time.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for the insights, Barry. It's really so important that we get the big picture. And I think that's what you really brought to us today is the big picture, because it is so hard to track things, as you said, on a daily basis or a weekly basis. And it was really helpful. Lots of the chat saying thank you so much. And also folks on the Zoom call today who've been part of your meditation groups and find it really rewarding. So give it a try. It is, this is a tough time for everyone. You heard Amy say it just really hit her in the last 2 weeks. So I think, one of the things, as Barry said, we know it's both physical, emotional, and spiritual health that we all have to think about. So I'm going to now switch off and thank you, Barry. And again, we'll include the links to reach out to Barry directly in the email. And I'm going to introduce to you a fantastic young lady. She couldn't be with us here today because she's in French class. And Hattie Shepard spends her summers in Stonington. And at her very young age, she's in high school, she defines service. She founded a program called the Amity Program to help seniors and high school students connect. And so we've decided to connect with her and her team of students on both a pen pal and a calling program that we know is something that has really been going around through the pandemic in lots of parts of the United States. I've been doing a lot of research on it. And she's worked for and volunteered for one of the largest ones in coming out of New York City called Dorit. So Hattie decided with a number of her friends to found her own nonprofit. So I'm going to play a video from Hattie, and then I'll come back and tell you how you're going to participate.
Hi, I'm Hattie Shepard, and I'm founder of the Amity Program. I have long-standing family in the Stonington area and have been visiting since I was born. We look forward to working with Enders Island Connections as we have a large team of students ready to connect through our pen pal and telephone correspondence program. Both of these programs are ongoing so that you are able to build an ongoing dialogue and connection. Our pen pal program aims to accommodate 2 letters per month and our telephone correspondence program 4 calls per month. If you are interested, please follow the guidance from Katy.
She is just a wonder. We are so glad we got connected with Hattie and her team. And as she said, she has a whole group of students who want to connect, and it's available to anybody, anywhere, whether you're in Rhode Island, Connecticut, Massachusetts, wherever you're dialing in from for the call. And it's, you'll see on the form that's attached, you can choose one or the other. Who doesn't like getting mail? How wonderful would it be to get mail? It's really wonderful. And Valerie, thank you for the note. Oh my God, how wonderful. Yes, it's wonderful. And these young people are so engaged. It's so wonderful to hear. So they want to communicate back and forth by mail, or they're happy to communicate by phone. So on the form, you'll see you get to choose either one or both. And it does ask for your name and your phone number, and it will be kept, confidential, obviously. And really, I think it is just a fantastic way to connect with young people. And we're really excited to be partnering with her. So please take advantage of it. And any people that you share this program with, the Seniors with Connections, if they register for the March or April or May, on our actual registration site, we now have a choice of participating in the pen pal and or in the calling program. And you decide what time you want them to call and which days of the week and how you want to connect. So it's really very tailored up to what you want and how you want to do it. So I'm really excited that with the grant from the Rotary, which, as Amy said, and as Barry's a longstanding member, has been able to help us be able to do that. So when Hattie's here this summer, we're going to definitely have her out to Enders Island, and we'll be talking to her more. So, and Charlotte asked a really good question. If you'd like to sign up to be a person calling or writing, we'll make that clear as well in the email so that we can connect you with Hattie. Because really, you may have grandchildren or children that want to participate as well. So we love that connection. We think that's just fantastic. So if anyone has any other questions, I'm going to go on to a couple of other resources because I know we're over time here. Either way, you can put them in an email to me. So just a reminder, if you need a ride, the Pawcatuck Neighborhood Center reminded me again, they have free rides for any seniors in the Mystic, Stonington, North Stonington area. The number will be in the email. Also, for the first time, the Pawcatuck Neighborhood Center is also signing up with cooking. If you go onto their site, if you're a fan of coconut macaroons, they're going to be teaching on March 5th at 1 o'clock how to make coconut macaroons. And the next thing, I'm going to actually put up a PowerPoint slide for this. These are so fantastic as a resource. The Mayo Clinic has newsletters that are super easy to read. They come in your email, sometimes bi-weekly, sometimes weekly. And when you go onto the site that I'll send to you, you choose the topics you're interested in. You may want to know about high blood pressure or diabetes, or if you're a caregiver for someone with Alzheimer's, Heart Healthy. I've been getting so many fantastic recipes since I signed up for Heart Healthy. They also have focus on digestive health. If you have osteoporosis, so check into that. I think you'll be really excited, and they're really easy to read. I think you'll start sharing them with a lot of your family members and friends. The next thing I found out actually through following Martha Stewart on Instagram. One of the things the New York City Ballet has been doing is they're sharing podcasts every Monday, free, sort of behind the scenes discussions with the choreographers, with the performers. So while you do have to pay to see the ballet, it's not that much to watch it on Zoom, but if you're really interested in kind of getting behind the scenes, check out their Monday podcasts to learn more about the ballet. The next fellow I found is amazing. If you haven't seen Ron Kenney on YouTube, he is a Mr. Fix-It. And it started with all of his friends of his children were saying, you know, God, your dad can do anything. He can fix anything. So he created this site, you know, Dad, how do I do it? So whether it's changing the doorknob or figuring out how do I keep my gas fresh in my lawnmower or my snowblower, you want to know how to turn your captions on in YouTube or tune a guitar, or I just watched one on how to change a shower head. So check out Ron Kenney if there's something you want to figure out how to fix. The next couple ones are also on YouTube, and they brought such a smile to my face. You can see I'm a bird lover, as you can imagine, and I can't wait to spend more time at the aquarium. But one of the things the Shed Aquarium did in Chicago was once COVID hit, they decided to let their penguins loose all over Chicago to get some cultural feedback. So these penguins have been to Soldier Field, all over the field. And when you watch the YouTube video, it's hysterical seeing them waddle around. They've been to the Field Museum, which is, you know, if you go to the next slide, Mark, you can see the penguins walking around with Tyrannosaurus Rex. Then they took them to the Contemporary Museum of Art, and there they are looking at art. It's just, it brings such a smile to your face. And then the last one, since I am such a bird lover, thank you to Trish and the Denison Pequot's website. They showed us this amazing yellow pigmented penguin, which is extremely rare. I mean, one in millions and millions. And the story behind this, if you want to Google it, is this expedition was starting out on a 2-month trip in Antarctica in the South Georgia Islands. And the first boat to reach the shores of this island was full of the technical crew who was setting up the equipment. And the explorer, who was the first one off the boat, happened to look over, and there's millions of black and white penguins, and he saw this yellow penguin and quickly caught a couple of shots. So the odds of him seeing it were really, really wild, depending on where they landed and what time it was. So there's lots of YouTube videos of this particular explorer. And then you may remember last month I talked about that amazing bird book. And wouldn't you know, the next day I was looking at my one of my bird feeders, and I saw this bird I'd never seen before with this bright yellow under plume. And I looked up in the book, and it was a flicker. So that was the first time I'd ever seen a flicker. So you can be sure that I'll always try and have a bird note. And then the last thing I'll tell you about, which was good news you can use, is this particular cereal is an amazing find, especially if you have diabetes or you're watching your carbohydrates. It has 0 grams of sugar versus, say, 21 grams in a regular cereal. It's gluten-free, it's grain-free, it has 11 grams of protein, and it actually tastes good. It's frosted flakes, it's got a peanut butter, a blueberry, and a chocolate. So a little pitch for Magic Spoon, because again, if you're watching sugar and you have diabetes, Magic Spoon is what you want. And my kids tell me it tastes good, so that's an added benefit. So we're well over our time, but we had so much great information to share today, and I can't thank Amy and Eric and Barry and all of the supporters at the Rotary, and the amazing Andrews Island team, Deb and Jacinta and Mark and Dan, who did all the filming with Marion. So send me any questions. I promise I'll answer them all. The next Zoom is March 31st, right before Easter, and our very own Carolyn Brell from Andrews Island is going to be sharing a cooking class. And then we're going to have some really interesting wine pairings for Easter and Passover meals that we think you might enjoy, and a couple of other terrific things to, again, brighten your day. We're going to get through to the next 24 days to spring. And again, share this email with friends and family that might want to sign up, because we'd love to connect. And I think unless there's any other comments, thanks to those of you that put into the chat. The entire call was recorded. A lot of people sent me notes that said they couldn't make today's call, but you can watch it later at any time that you want, which is the beauty of having things on YouTube. And lastly, don't forget the 10 minutes of Marion. Deb Newman was in her class this morning and said, I'm going to do this. So we're going to root for Deb and for all of you. So with that, I'm going to sign off and say thanks so much, everybody.